welcome to Global Chamber San Antonio, Global Chamber Texas. Welcome to our celebration of the MLK holiday, celebrating the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We are partnering up with Dream Week. Dream Week has given us the ability to share our event with you. And so today, as I know, our numbers with the coronavirus or COVID-19 are still continuing to go higher and higher. And we really know that so many cities like the city of San Antonio, who had a very large march year after year, this year they're doing a virtual march. And it's because of the COVID-19. And so while we know that we're not doing the traditional things in which we normally would do, we want to still recognize the life of Dr. King. The theme of Dream Week 2021 is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And so today, we want to make sure that we talk to you about not only how Dr. King saw life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, but I have some special guests with me, individuals who I know have really labored for their business, for their families, really to create this sense of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We all don't have the same definitions of what that is. And so it's important as entrepreneurs, as business people, to be able to explain what is it that we believe. And so I have with me some outstanding individuals. I'm going to start off with a great friend who has been really in the trenches dealing with civil rights, equal opportunity and treatment, diversity and inclusion. His name is Gerald D. Givens Jr. Gerald Givens is the president of the NAACP Raleigh Apex in North Carolina, and he has been a resident of San Antonio, Texas. He's worked with our chamber on multiple events while he lived here and continues to provide his input. And I just want to say thank you to him because he is really on the front line. And I would also like for him to kind of set the tone for what is this MLK holiday 2021 really all about. Mr. Givens.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody, for being here. To my panelists here, I'm glad to be here on this panel with you all on this special MLK holiday. You know, today, it's all about a day on and not a day off. It's that opportunity to provide a service, a community service to the communities that we live in, and to make an impact on where we live. And that's what Dr. King was all about. That was his whole life was about. It was about making an impact from his early ages of education and being excellent at that, and going to college when he was 16 years of age, to heading over to Morehouse and exceeding and excelling in Morehouse, and then going to Boston University and becoming a theologian, and then going into the ministry, and then getting involved in the movement for about the next 18 years of his life until the day he was assassinated. But Dr. King was a servant leader from the beginning to the end. And that's the model that all of us need to follow, especially during today's time when we're dealing with COVID-19, and it's going to take everybody to get on the team to help us all recover socioeconomically, politically, and medically from COVID-19. So in the spirit of Dr. King, we're going to keep that dream alive. We're going to keep the community lit, and we're going to keep hope going, and we're going to continue to make a difference.
Well, so Gerald, one of the areas that we're focusing on today is the notion of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So take me back to how Dr. King used our Declaration of Independence to forge ahead with the notion of rights for, at that time, African Americans that he was fighting for. But how does life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness work today?
Well, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is such an incredible and such an important thing today because of the situation that we're in, where you have almost 400,000 Americans who've lost their lives, and that's families who've lost a loved one. That's children who are no longer with their parents. That's grandparents with generational knowledge that's gone. That's, you know, it's going to take so much for all of us to get back to normal. You know, how many businesses out there have you seen that have closed their doors over this past year? How the schools have been shut down, the colleges and universities are online. I mean, we've changed so much of our lifestyle right now. And life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness, it kind of like seemed like it's kind of out of touch right now because of the current situation that we have with COVID-19. So, you know, it's still something that's a goal for all of us. We haven't achieved that level yet, but I guarantee you everybody on this panel would agree that things are so much better today than they were 50 years ago.
I see.
Because, you know, I remember when, you know, how Dr. King kicked off and getting involved with the movement was the Montgomery bus boycott. And he became the president of the Montgomery Improvement Association. And their goal was to manage the Montgomery bus boycott. And the way how they had it set up was, you know, blacks could sit in certain areas of the bus, whites could sit in certain areas of the bus. But the one thing that couldn't happen was black people and white people couldn't sit together.
Right.
And here we are today, and you know, that's not a problem. You can go and use public transportation. You can eat at restaurants. You can shop in stores. You know, I was thinking about business. I was just telling some folks that when I was growing up, we had the catalog. We had the J.C. Penney's catalog, and we had the Sears catalog. And that's what when our grandparents would give us those things, and we would circle what it is that we wanted. And that's how they shop. Black people helped spear off that business, the catalog business, because we weren't permitted to go into the stores and to shop inside the stores.
Thank
And
you.
so, you know, it's life is so much better than what it used to be, but we
Right.
still have a lot more to go.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I'm going to pull in my chairman, Jorge Canavati. He is, we'll give you the salute. He has an immigrant story that, you know, when I look at life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, again, we're a global chamber, and we are individuals who come from various regions of the world. And so I wanted to give my chairman the chance to talk about his story and how does he see today as a day on and not a day off in his remembrance of Dr. King, and again the Dream Week theme of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Chairman Kanavati. And you can unmute. Yes, sir.
You know, this is like we're having a seance. Have you noticed that? But can you hear me? I can't see you. Where are you? Right? But thank you, Chris, very much. I remember, first of all, very vividly the day that Reverend King was assassinated, because even though I'm an immigrant, we lived in New York when we were little. My father was the Mexico Trade Commissioner in the U.S., so we lived temporarily in New York, and I remember that day very, very well, like it was yesterday. Then we moved back to Mexico, and then decades later, we migrated to the United States. We became an immigrant, which was a very a painstaking story to leave your country and come to this country, and they make it the process was very difficult, and knowing that we had already given so much to the United States, being on work visas and so on and so forth, but we continued, and to this day I continue. Chris is witness to this, to give to this country as an immigrant, keeping my cultural roots. The critical thing in being an immigrant is do not forget your roots. Do not forget your roots.
Right.
Even though you have sworn you have sworn allegiance to the United States, and you literally swear unto a judge. Your right hand is up, and so, but you never forget your roots. You can't play both games. You can't play both countries. Okay, but you never forget your roots. And this gives you a more how am I going to put this? You appreciate the United States more. You really do. You decided to come here. You weren't born here. You decided to come here, and you give it more. You give it your all. In our organization, we have many folks from Vietnam, from Egypt, from all over the world. Now, one thing I don't see, and we were never brought up like this. I don't see. This makes me very sad, because I know I read and I lived the struggle, and I see the struggle. We weren't brought up Black, Hispanic, white. We were just brought up people. So when I see what goes on, the Mr. King's and the struggle, it really, I'm just taken aback. Yeah, and I just cannot fathom it. I don't have the intellect to fathom that, because we weren't brought up that way. We weren't brought up, and it brings me to the point of the vice president elect. They gave her like 4 or 5 different races, right? She's like a brand. She's this woman vice president. She's the first woman vice president elect. You don't have to brand a person. Yeah, I can't fathom that. So, but as Gerald said, we've come a long way. And this brings me to Mahatma Gandhi, which he said the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Right? So I think Mahatma Gandhi was probably Dr. King's second cousin, because it was the same thought. I practice altruism quite a bit. And altruism, for those that don't know, is the principle in moral practice and concern for the happiness of other human beings, resulting in the quality of life, both material and spiritual, which is what we're talking about today. It's very simple. And the more you practice it, the more you have a strong sense of fulfillment. So the immigrant story is just that. You just fall into your community, serve the community at all levels, and you will feel a very strong sense of spirituality. I don't go to church. I feel, and my wife, who is very devout, says, I do more with what I do. It's more Christian what I do than many Christians that she knows. And she says this, and I don't go to church. All right. And yes, I believe in God, and I believe in Jesus, of course. Jesus is a hip, he's a hip hero, man. He's great. But that's it. That is me. And I'll celebrate this wonderful day in this way, what we just discussed.
Okay, great.
Did I confuse everybody?
No, you didn't. I think that, again, in America, we all have the ability to have differences of thought, opinion, of what we serve, who we serve, how we dress. And I look at my service, because I did provide service to the United States Air Force, and so did Gerald.
So did my daughter-in-law.
And Lanier Robbins also served. And so as we think of our service, we raise our hands to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? So with that being said, we actively know that there's differences. And that's what I believe that was true about Dr. King. He believed and knew that we all had differences, but he was trying to get us to a unity table, a table where we could all come together and we could respect each other based off of the Declaration of Independence and what it said there, that our Creator gave us the God-given rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And so when we talk about that, and I'm going to now shift to Nadia Angladi, when you grew up outside of the U.S., Nadia, how did you see the United States? And then how did you see the opportunity that you have today?
That's a really interesting question, Chris, because as a little girl, I used to really dream a lot about what the US and other countries were all about, what they looked like, what people wore. You see, as a child growing up in the West Indies, all you had was your little TV, right? You only saw models and you saw all these famous brands and everything, not knowing that you'll ever get there, right? But my dream has always been to go to the US. And what we used to hear is that the US is for the land of the free and it's flowing of milk and honey, and the streets are paved with gold, and that's what we kept on hearing. And it was amazing because when I first came to the US, I was looking for those things, like literally looking for those things. And I'm like, I went to the Bronx of all places, right? And there was a lot of dog poop instead of the streets paved with gold. And I was looking for the milk and honey, but I realized what it was. And what we're told in other countries, there is such an extravagant, I guess, experience. I guess people just wanted the US to be, because they're the number one world power, they wanted that perception in everyone's mind, right? All the great things about the US, like opportunities, absolutely that was there, right? I left Trinidad to get to the US because I'll tell you, if I had stayed in my country, the opportunities were very limited, right? I can literally be whoever it is I wanted to and more in the US. And I thought that is what really allowed me to see that, man, I can really do this. Many immigrants have done it, right? But on the downside, what I was not exposed to, very similar to what Mr. Hoyer said, we didn't grow up with the white, black, like set. It was the shade of your color, okay? The higher color you are, the higher shade you are, is more esteemed you are in our country. The darker shade you are is the lower esteemed. But there was not a segregation of white versus black. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know I was black until I came to the US. Wow. And when I spoke to my bosses about that, they bust out laughing. And it was real. I'm like, what is this? And so the US has a very, I would say, classist society way of thinking, supremacy way of thinking. It also kind of a lot of labeling goes on, right? And that was a big culture shock, for me. But I must say, in the 20-something odd years I've been here, I've only been directly discriminated once. Mm-hmm. But it took that one time for me to really wake up though. And I think everything that Martin Luther King, Jr. did, it really helps reinforce why he did those things. Because today we have social media. Right? We don't have where we meet in little houses and stuff. Now something comes out and within seconds, within minutes, we can expose, whoever is doing what. And I think that's the great thing about, our life today. But I think the pursuit of life and happiness and opportunity here for me has been about who I am as that person. And because I was immersed in values, when you grow up in a third world country and you barely have anything, you immerse yourself in your cultural values. And as he said, you don't forget where you come from. And that's what's really helped me to create even more opportunities for people, whether they look like me or not. And I think that's what allows me to really tap into what this day is all about.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to each of you. So don't think that the first thing that you said is the last thing you said. I want to now pivot to Lanier Robbins in Miami. She is our executive director of Global Chamber there, and she has her own story. And so welcome, and please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Christopher, and thank you all of you for having me here today, especially on this special and important day to honor Dr. King's legacy. I echo the words that Mr. Givens said in his opening remarks of keeping the dream alive through service. In the community where I come from in Miami, there are many people giving service every day, trying to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they do it through social and economic justice. It's incredible to see what people are doing on a daily basis, and a lot to emulate and try to reimagine what's possible. In terms of my own ancestry, I have great grandparents on both sides, second great grandparents who immigrated to the United States from Ireland. And so that was post potato famine, and they left for social and economic reasons. A lot of injustice and cases of tyranny that were going on in their communities that led them to come to the United States in search of a dream. And so I think with their story, and although I don't know exactly how they felt when they came to the United States and got a glimpse of racism and xenophobia and some of the other things that they themselves also went through, being Irish Catholic immigrants in a highly competitive workforce arriving in Philadelphia. I don't know those stories, what they said, what they did, how they reacted, but I do know that I guess it's about, they came here in 1888, so 100 years later, and here I am, born in 1971.
Right.
And so the message that I've taken is, what am I doing for others, even if I don't have their experience?
Mhm.
And so how can I see myself in the shoes of other people, whether it's an experience very different from my own or one that's similar? And what am I doing for others when it doesn't benefit me? And so that's the greatest message I take in thinking about my own ancestors' journey, as well as the people I know in my life and those that I meet, like today, the pleasure of having met. Also, in terms of new immigrants in the United States, I think that it's very important to support new immigration, because it's really the new waves of immigration that remind those of us like myself how important civic engagement is. I know that in Miami, we have Miami-Dade County has an Office of New Immigration, and they support new immigrants learning English, getting acclimated, taking their citizenship tests, and they ask for volunteers for that office. And so I think putting your efforts to support new groups of people coming to the country and all of the skills that they can offer, and the new ways of looking at things, perspectives. So if we could see ourselves in that journey as well, I think then Dr. King's vision comes full circle, where we're all one people. So thank you very much.
Well, Lanier, you said something that I want to talk about just briefly, and then I'm going to go to Cecilia Castellano. Here in San Antonio, this is probably this is a majority Hispanic or Latino community, and so every day I know that there are new people who are coming into Texas, and I had the chance to provide a graduation speech to a program called Parents Academy, and it was for individuals who obtained citizenship, and then they were being taught how to be an American. And when I gave the graduation speech, it was probably 1,000 new parents who had taken citizenship serious. They learned how to get to establish bank accounts, how to start businesses, how to buy homes, and they received the building blocks that would make them to be successful. When I think about the African American experience, and I think that African Americans, as we were bought here on slave ships, and as we became free, I can't say that there was a single point in time where the citizenship and the education that goes along with citizenship was taught. So how do you teach masses of people about loving and appreciating their country if their first experience was not that of being free? And so, and I think today in 2021, we see still the wealth gap, which is very wide. The wealth gap is huge. We see disparities in pay and job promotions. I mean, Gerald Givens can tell us better, but you see all of these things, and it's still, I still listen to the immigrant story as being different than that of the African American story. And so if I had my brother from Africa that was working with me, he would say that African Americans and Africans have different thoughts in terms of why haven't African Americans achieved more since you've been here? And so that's a mindset. I'm going to now switch to Cecilia, and we'll come back to that discussion because I just want to throw that out there. I appreciate each of you for all coming on today, sharing your story. Cecilia Castellano is a member of Global Chamber San Antonio. She is the president and CEO of Azteca Design. And I've watched this woman work her business. So Cecilia, tell us about what life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is to you.
Well, thank you, Chris, for having me on. I've listened to each of you and have taken some notes. And Gerald, your speech was great. And I asked myself, what is happiness? What signifies happiness and life? George, you spoke about not forgetting your roots, and you can't play both countries. And as we know that in the book of James, it states about that we can't waver in our faith. You can't be hot or cold. You either got to be hot or cold. And so everything that y'all are saying comes down to one bottom line. Chris, you asked me, what is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I got to say, as I've turned from the world to the word, and I'm not a perfect woman of faith. I'm not religious, but I am a Christian woman. And to me, life is when I died to myself and gave myself to God, truly to God. And it took something that really hit my life tremendously, where I can say that I'm truly living now. Now, when life to me is having all opportunities come to me and come to everybody equally, without any injustice, without having to jump through hurdles and climb those mountains. And yet we're still going through those. So life to me, I'm living through the word and not having the true opportunity to live through the world. And I thank Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend King, for paving the way as we continue, Nadia and Christopher and everyone that's on here, to continue to pave the way for all of us. As Gerald said, that it takes all of us. It's going to take all of us to work in unison to really create a life that we can say we live in the world, but continue to live by the word. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me, yes.
The pursuit of happiness, I see it as well as I'm truly happy because I'm in the word, because I can go to the word, to the Bible, and see how I got to run my business, how I got to be a woman of valor, and how I can help others, as Nadia said. And really the streets of milk and honey are not here in the world, but are in heaven, where God is going to be giving us that. And so happiness, I am truly happy in the word. But to say that I'm happy in the world, there is so much destruction. And I believe after I sat my 11-year-old down and we were watching a segment of Dr. Martin Luther King, and what stood out to me was the neighborhood segregation. That was one thing that he passed, correct? That's what they were saying. And as Chris said, that there is a wealth gap. There is a disparity. There is still neighborhood segregation. We see it from the north, south, east, and west, the size of houses, the type of materials that they use, and so on and so forth. How can we all bring everything together and to continue to pave the way and take on that torch from Dr. Martin Luther King. It seems like we all have the word in us, but to continue to take the word into the world is what we need to do, to continue to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and to have prosperity, and not only in the word, but in the world for our future generations to come.
Okay.
So that is what life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness means to me.
Thank you. I appreciate your response. And the reason why I picked all of you is because you all have different perspectives. And as we talk and share, it's so important to be able to understand where we all come from. Going back to Gerald Givens, so Dr. King wrote a book that talked about chaos, and it was what was the name of the title of the book, Gerald?
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? Chaos or community?
Right. So
that's exactly where we are right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was Dr. King's remedy for the chaos or community? How do you see, each of you, how do you see able to bring together a collective community that will help to further advance, and notice I say advance, the dialogue, the love, as I personally see it, a house divided does not stand. And as we as a nation, it seems as though 50% is on one side, 50% is on the other side. So how do we bring together a nation so we're stronger and not weaker? How do we bring this together using Dr. King's premise, Mr. Givens?
Dr. King knew exactly what Cecilia knew, that in life, you have to have balance. If you have too much oxygen, you burn. You have too little, you choke. You have to balance life. And Dr. King knew the same thing that entrepreneurs knew, that as an entrepreneur, you know what you're going to do from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to sleep. Your day is completely planned. Every hour, every minute, every second of the day is accounting towards you moving something forward for yourself, your business, and the community in which you serve in, because that's the role you have to play. And Dr. King knew that so well that when it got to a point in the movement, when he switched to economics, when he got there, he realized that, hey, these people are buying that ice cream, but yet they don't work in the place that produces that ice cream, package it, distribute it, you sell it. He realized those pieces where we were missing on the table. Then he recognized that, hey, it's the business community that has these signs that say whites only and blacks only. They had a role in it too. And so he realized that, and he put the challenge before all of us before he passed away with his book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. And that's exactly where we are in 2021, where it's a group of us in this country, small group, but influential enough that they are causing a whole lot of chaos in education, economics, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion. Those of us in the military, war. They're causing chaos. But those of us who want community, we're going to have to get a little bit louder. We're going to have to get a little bit bolder, and we're going to have to be a little bit more committed to creating a more perfect union, which the founders of this nation left us the charge to do because they knew they didn't do it right. They left it for future generations. And I think our generation is super special, because imagine if Dr. King would have had Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Right? We got all these great tools. I was just in a conversation for 3 hours with people across the African diaspora on YouTube. that's where we are right now. I mean, it was people from Brazil, from Kenya, from South Carolina, you name it. We were all in there, just like a big gumbo, learning and teaching each other and trying to figure out how we can do business with each other on a global scale. Because that's where we are. We have to, we've in America, we've mastered manufacturing and distribution, but we haven't mastered equity and equality. That's where we have to do the work.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to go back over to Lanier and Robbins in Miami. Dreamers have been dreaming, have been looking forward to being able to have a true place in the United States. And you have so many dreamers in your city, your population. Tell us more about how do dreamers look at today's holiday with MLK?
And as you said, we have many dreamers in the Miami community. I happen to know one who graduated from law school, and he's working at a firm in North Carolina and recently achieved citizenship. And I mean, he's doing so many things that, really surpassing people that haven't had to jump through the hoops that he has. And so it's incredibly inspiring to hear some of the stories and to know some of these people. And I really hope that the opportunities open up further for them, because it's such a gift to our society. And also it's only going to make us all better. Some of the conversation reminds me of something that, let me see who it was, Mayor Landro recently said that each generation of the moment grips that arc of history and bends it one way or the other, forward or back. And comments on what if Dr. King would have had Facebook, Google, any of these tools that we have today. And you're all absolutely right. There's so much that we could do to amplify this mission. And so I'm even more inspired by all of your comments.
So let me also ask you the question, executive director to executive director, how do you see the opportunity of Global Chamber in what you do? Because I know that it's a platform that we have. So tell us about how you see Global Chamber and helping the business community to reach the level of community that Mr. Joe Gibbons talked about.
And so one of the comments was that the role that the business community hasn't played historically in promoting equity. And so I think that that's changing. We've seen parts of the business community take a stance on various issues. I think that's going to continue to happen. And I think just having these kinds of conversations that we're having within the business space. I mean, we're talking about culture, we're talking about history, we're talking about things that maybe even 10 years ago would have been taboo to bring up in a business sector or business environment. And so now I see that we're just overlapping all of these things that we should. Social infrastructure, economic infrastructure has everything to do with business. And so I think that the more that we see these intersections and the need to promote them,
yes,
we're going to keep doing our due diligence to have these conversations. Part of the problem is that not everybody's talking. Someone mentioned earlier about half of the country thinking one thing, the other half something else. And so as we all know, it depends on what echo chamber you're in and where you're getting your news. So if we were to just surpass the news and just have conversations, maybe that's one step in the right direction. But it's going to take a lot more other clever techniques and things that we have to keep brainstorming and working together to figure out.
I appreciate that. And, I'll say for me, just being able to work daily, every day with different people, not being pigeonholed into working with one type of person, but we have a global community, and which is beautiful. And so I get a chance to demonstrate my love for people and my service by being able to connect people. They say that I'm a connector, so I like to connect. So all of you guys should connect after this. So I'm going to now transition to Nadia. You started this the networking embassy as a vision, and now that you're here on the Dream Week platform, tell us more about how you see getting into a community that was described by Dr. King in his last days.
If you can.
So I think one of the reasons why I even named my business the Networking Embassy, because I realized that there was a serious gap with African Americans and networking. I think over time, because of all the things that's been told to us, we tend to separate ourselves from each other as opposed to come together collaboratively. And so one of the things that I found in one of the companies I worked for is that the more networking events I attended, I was always mostly the only Black person in the room. And I realized that a big part of businesses and their successes is by how much they're involved in their community, how much they get together. In fact, every time they saw me, I started off as a stranger initially. And as time went by, I kept on learning more and more people. People started inviting me things that were by invitation only. And I'm like, oh, so this is the secret in society, right? And so I think the one thing that my business has brought is just really learning to introduce people to each other so that they can do business together, that they could be connected, that they can, instead of creating a barrier for our people, what it's done is to open up a floodgate, right? Even on LinkedIn, in 2019, I started off with over 800 followers. And I decided to commit myself to post, to make a daily post for 365 days. And Chris, I kid you not, I started off with 800 followers. A year later, I had over 10,000 followers. And a big part of my post was bringing people from all over the world, connecting them in and out of my community together. I would have private messages, people hitting me up for all different types of things. And I always say, hey, I know exactly the person who you need to speak to. And I may not always have the direct access, but I always know someone who does. And I think a big part of my business is making sure that our people, our community stay connected and educate them on the pertinence of building those strong relationships, because a lot of what business is about referrals. A lot about how we thrive in our community is about all in terms of who you trust, who you want to do business with, who you should be doing business with. But if we keep that information to ourselves and do not want to give back, that's where we fall into a lot of problems. Right. And that's why other cultures will always be like ahead of us, because we need to be able to let go and give that information to each other and help each other every single day.
Thank you. Very good answer. Cecilia,
Yeah.
so when we look at Dr. King's holiday and we look at this thing, you did a great job talking about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Talk to me about it from your business perspective as an executive. I know that you've been given lots of opportunities, but then you've also been frustrated because of how small businesses typically have, to prove themselves over and over and over, while the larger, bigger companies basically get a pass. They don't have to, and I shouldn't say a pass, but they don't have to go through as many of the proving stones in which we would have to uncover for small businesses. So tell me about the struggle of a small business, and then again, how do you build this community and network with other businesses that can help further your interest and others' interests?
Okay, I'm going to give a warning. I get very emotional. So if I start crying, please forgive me. Well, as a minority woman in construction, there you have it. I'm a minority, I'm a Latina, and I'm in construction, a male-dominated industry. And I'm not the front of the company, I am the company. I'm very active in the company. Not only do I do all the administrative aspect, but I used to run projects, and I used to install with my husband. We've graduated from there, where my husband still runs jobs, and I now stick more to the office aspect. However, 15 years in business, 15 years in business, and I can't go get work past probably going west, because we already know what we're called. I've been, and my company, we have been called all sorts of names. Down to my son, we don't go and get work down Yoakum, down in that area either. So as I have grown this company, no one's given me this company except for God. God's the one that gave me the vision. I used to sleep with a notebook near my bed because, I mean, he would just download information. I would have never been able to learn how to be the president and CEO of this company. One thing that I've always done is I have always fought. I've always asked why. When you tell me no, why is the answer no? And I always found myself fighting, but when I would fight to ensure that the next person behind me had the opportunity. And so working alongside with these different organizations such as TxDOT, because we're a government contractor, we have changed multiple legislations, not only with the procurement side, but also with children with special needs. I've gone and I've done proclamations in Austin to ensure fair and equal opportunities for children with dyslexia or any type of special education needs. And today I find myself, I have joined a group, two groups. One is the Fair Contracting Coalition. It's an organization that that fights for people that have not had a fair and equal opportunity at getting a contract. And at first I would go and listen, and I think I kind of bumped heads with Chris a little. But Chris and I have known him for many years, probably maybe 13 years, 14 years, probably.
Yeah.
And then Chris, I joined the Global Chamber. And at first, like, the Global Chamber is not for me. You know, I'm in services, I'm in construction, this is what I do. But meeting people like you guys that have a different cultures, different colors, different backgrounds. And it's not the America that we have seen today that are getting those opportunities. And I'm trying my hardest not to say certain things that because I don't want to look racist, but because of everything that has happened today, it has continued to hinder my business as a Hispanic woman. And so because I'm very vocal, and I thank God that I have someone like Christopher that has stuck behind me. He's a wonderful writer, as we all know that. And as I share my heart with Christopher, he knows how to put it so eloquent and so professional. And I'm just like, you know, kind of throwing stuff out, you know, that this is how I feel. It's not just how I feel, but this is what I fight for. And so today we are facing a lawsuit. We have been sued, Christopher and I, because we have fought for an African-American company. We have a individual that works for the city of San Antonio that has defamed 3 minority contractors, and I am one of them. To this day, the city of San Antonio has not done anything about it. And to this day, Christopher and I are fighting that lawsuit. And I get frustrated because not only am I trying to run my business, but I feel like it's a ridiculous lawsuit because we were asking questions to the city of asking questions such as, how did this company from Maryland come down and get a $3 million contract without having to follow city requirements? How could this company come down and do this? But yet we were disparaging the company. And so I feel as if this is an example of carrying Dr. Martin Luther King's vision, is carrying Rosa Parks' vision of fighting. She fought for people to have a fair and equal seat in a bus. Mm. And so how can we all stick together to fight together in unison to continue this? Am I scared? Heck yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared for my family because my business is on the line. Everything my husband and I have worked for is on the line. And then to know that Chris what he's going through medically. And he shouldn't be going through this, because we all know that what stress can do. Yeah, I'm mad. Yeah, I'm hurt. I look at my sons. I look at now my granddaughter. But I have to wipe the tears and say, you know what? This is who I am. God put me here for a reason. And this is not a fight to back down, but this is a fight to carry the torch for Dr. Martin Luther King, to carry the torch for Nadia, for Gerald, for Lanier, for George, for all of us. But how can such lawsuits be thrown out for us to stick together? And so I say to y'all that Chris and I will continue to fight, and we're gonna fight. We are scared, but with God, all things are possible, and that's all I keep telling myself. With God.
Now, I gotta jump in. I gotta jump in now because, you know, I serve as a president of the NAACP branch. I oversee pretty much and provide services for about 1 million people. And I'm gonna follow and validate what Cecilia says, because about a month or so ago, I had 17 phone calls that dealt with employment issues. 16 out of those 17 issues dealt with women on the job. 16 out of 17. And then what did we hear at the end of the month about the jobs report? That all the jobs that were lost were women. And men actually gained 16,000 jobs. So Cecilia, what you're saying is real. It's not fiction. It's reality, and it happens every single day. And I'll say this about San Antonio, the city that I lived in for the second largest, longest city I've ever lived in my life. I'll say this: when I retired from the Air Force and I moved into the civilian sector, I could clearly see discrimination in the company that I was working for. And not only in the company in itself, but how we did business with vendors and companies around the city. So what happened, Chris? You saw what I did. Hey, the guy who was doing all my roofing, he was Asian. The person who was doing the construction work like Cecilia, she was Black. I spreaded that budget out, created new opportunities, and we went from a $5 million operation to a $16 million operation in 4 years, because we opened it up to people of color. That's what we do. We make gumbo. We make it good.
I like that. We make it gumbo.
All right.
You know, so I just want to say that to all of those businesses out there in San Antonio and across the nation, around the world, open it up. Open it up.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to pivot to allow Chairman Canavati to have the closing words. But I want to say, before I give him the ability to close us, that you know, I've only known my friends here to be of great character, and I think that when Dr. King stood up for what he believed was right, men and women around the world stood up with him, and he knew that his life was not going to be a long life. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to leave his heirs with money or with property and vast fortunes. I mean, he told this story himself. And so, but what he did say is that he wanted to live a life, a legacy that was built on the integrity of who he was as a man, and the character, the godly character that he exhibited. And so, yes, there will always be people, as we remember the MLK holiday, that will throw stones at you, or that will want to pick a fight with you, or that will want to exploit your good nature, or that will want to even change your countenance because they don't want to see the smile on your face, and they don't want to see you do things the way you do it. But at the end of the day, for me, God is in control. And so I am so happy again that I had the chance to fellowship with all of you. I'm going to now allow our chairman, Chairman Jorge Canavati, not George, Jorge Canavati, to close us today. Right on, my brother Jorge.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Chris. Again, hearing everyone's stories and hearing all the experiences, it is giving to others. That is the message of Dr. King. And I, without knowing it, I've been doing it for a very long period of time. Give yourself to others without expecting anything in return. The altruism, check it out on Wikipedia. Altruism, that's what it's about. Giving to the less fortunate, that's what it's about. And get involved with an organization called Kiva. You're familiar with Kiva? Kiva.org. This is all part of the vision of Dr. King, and that is how we're going to heal through these past 4 years. This is how we're going to come together. I mean, you're going to hear many things about the teachings of Dr. King today and all of your stories, and it all comes back to giving to others. And what we said in the beginning, I don't see color. I just see people. That's all I see. And that's the way it's always been. And that's the way it always will be. And just give yourself to others. And I have, and as the story of slavery, as dark and as horrific it has been, now the positive, it has given us tremendous things. It has that dark era in humanity has given us so many things that we take for granted every day. No matter where you turn, no matter what you do, what the things that we have today have a lot come from that very, very dark part of the history of humanity. And I say this because I'm involved in music. Chris knows this, and we all know a lot of what is happening here. A lot of what happens, I'm from Mexico. A lot of the Mexico culture comes what is known as the third root. Mexico's culture is not native or it's now First Nations and Europe. There were 3 cultures involved. 3. The third root is Africa. These are all things that I've been studying for the past 10 years. Next month is Black History Month, right, Chris?
That's right. February.
All right. I'm going to invite all of you to a special radio show. I have a radio show every Sunday. I celebrate the third root every year, and how Africa played a big role in everything that we have. I can go on and on, but I have a little trivia, a question.
Okay.
Where was the first freed community, the first freed slaves community? Where was it?
I already know, so I'm gonna let somebody else answer.
What?
Alabama?
Nope. Chris?
I'm gonna let Gerald or Nadia go ahead, or even Lanier. Shoot.
Liberia?
Nope.
New York?
Nope.
It's Brother Carolinas, right?
Nope.
The Caribbean?
Nope.
All right, tell us.
All right. In the mid 1600s, a little small town in Veracruz, and it was started by an escaped slave from the Spaniards called Gaspar Yanga, Y-A-N-G-A. And to this day, this is in the 1600s, to this day, that little town in the mountains of Veracruz is called Yanga, Veracruz. And he escaped, and for decades, with the people he took, fought the Spaniards until they acknowledged their freedom. And that was the first freed community of slaves in the Americas, Yanga, Veracruz. And I tell the story on the radio show, and it's a wonderful story.
What's your radio show?
It's
what's
it's Jazz de Mexico, and it's on KRTU Trinity Radio 91.7 FM Sunday nights at 7 p.m.
So with that, everyone tune in, and we'll promote the recognition of Black History Month with Chairman Canavati. I want to thank each of you panelists who have joined us today, who shared really your heart and gave us a real good story in terms of how you see life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm Christopher Herring, the Executive Director with Global Chamber San Antonio, and I'm so happy that you all joined us. Please share this video. We're going to put it on social media, so please share it, and please celebrate today by recognizing the life contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who really gave his life to advance African Americans in particular, but as we've seen, so many people, types of people have benefited from his work. And so again, thank you, Dr. King. Thank you, Rosa Parks. And then I also said this morning to my girlfriend, I said, we also should thank Coretta Scott King, because Coretta Scott King went through everything and more with her husband, who she knew was basically going to be a martyr in some respect for the civil rights in which he was trying to promote and push for our nation. So, so again, as we think about Martin, think about Coretta, and so I thank you again, and may God bless each of you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you all.
Bye,
Keep hope
everybody.
alive.
Thank
Let's
you.
do
It was
it.
a pleasure.
That's it.
Bye.